All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Religion, Economics, and Politics. I'm your host, Morris Jackson. And once again, we have another dynamic guest. I have with me man of God, family man, and entrepreneur, Donn Jobe, and it's Don with two N's. And I had to make sure I got that right, Don with two N's. Uh, the name of this podcast is Manifesting the Dream. And Don, I think, is the personification of that. But I'm not going to stand in the way. I'm going to actually let Don introduce himself and just kind of give you his background, and then we'll get this thing going. So, Don, if you will, just kind of tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a former Marine. I am a graphic designer by trade, 27 years in the industry, and I am an entrepreneur. And so in my entrepreneurial pursuits, we became apparel decorators. And so that's what our specialty is now, is in the apparel decoration business. And we've been doing apparel decoration for 27 years now.
Wow, for 27 years.
Yeah, just as long as I've been a graphic designer, we've been decorating apparel.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So Don, so you didn't always start out in your own business. So kind of tell us a little bit how you transition or what made you decide to go into your own business, go into business for yourself.
Well, one of the things when I got in the Marine Corps and I stayed in California for about a year, I worked for Jenny Craig, and I came back to Nashville to be with my daughter, and I drove a truck, worked for Home Depot, and then I went to work for Dixie Wire Company. And while I was at the wire company, I started going back to school for graphic design. But in the meantime, I found myself just chasing money and working at this particular company. I just didn't like it. And so one night I was sitting at the machine and I could hear God clear as day telling me, I gave you a gift, and if you don't use it, I'll take it away from you. And at that moment, every night, again, I started going back to church. I found myself as a young deacon in the church, and I started writing scriptures. And we started, and from doing my scriptures, I started selling Christian apparel. And so Christian apparel became a thing that we were doing, Christian apparel, family reunions, and class reunions. And it kind of morphed into the business that it is today. And so I count everything that I'm doing now comes back full circle to the fact that, God was revealing himself in my life. And I knew I wanted to do something that was different and more than just working for somebody, because my grandfather, when I look back on him as a sharecropper and raising 13 kids and, never having a job, he was a farmer. And so looking back, he was an entrepreneur. We just saw him as a farmer, or other people just saw him as a farmer. But when you look at farming today is a big business, a multi-million-dollar business.
Absolutely.
They're entrepreneurs. And so it's in my blood. And I just happen to have a gift, a talent that God gave me. And I used that to start my t-shirt business.
That's amazing, Don. And I really like that story, and with it being Black History Month, and I do think it's important because I do think the young Black folks out there, young men, young women, need examples like yourself. Yeah. And to see someone actually go out and actually live their dream, live their passion out. That desire inside, because so many times, we're told, and I'm not bashing college or anything like that. I've got a college degree myself, but what I'm saying is this: a lot of times we're told, you go to college, you get out, you go work for someone else. Entrepreneurship is not necessarily something that is actually pushed or advertised to us while we're in school. If you're going to, while you're in high school, they're telling you to go to college so that you can get out and get a good job and go work for someone else, which, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. We need doctors, we need lawyers, but we also need entrepreneurs, and so if you can tell us a little bit about what was the most challenging or and rewarding thing that you faced as an entrepreneur.
Well, the most challenging thing was the finances.
Mm.
Uh, during even during my entrepreneurial endeavors, I worked a full-time job, and I was miserable at every job I had, but I seemed to excel at it because being in the graphic design industry, that was my specialty. That's something that I was doing even in high school, and so that's something that even if you were to talk to my parents, I was drawing at the age of 5, and so
Wow.
I was always creative, and so uh, in my endeavors, I still had to take care of my family. And so trying to find the finances to be able to, what we coin now is to take that leap that was never there. We had to come up with creative ways to finance a lot of the equipment I have, and so that's one of the challenging things. And that's one of the things that would stop most people from pursuing their entrepreneurial dream. Again, I didn't have any mentors. My father wasn't an entrepreneur. He was one, like you said, hey, go to school, find you a good job, and work that job for 30 years. But
Right.
as we know now, statistics show people of our age, and even my son's age now, my daughter, they'll probably have 5 or 6 jobs before they wind down to the one that they really truly love. And so, for me, that was the most challenging thing, finding the finances to buy the equipment that I needed. And even today, I would tell somebody who wants to get into the t-shirt apparel industry, you don't need all the equipment I have now. All you need is a heat press machine, because the industry has morphed. It has morphed from screen printing to direct to garment printing to direct to film printing to screen printed transfers to cut vinyl, to print cut vinyl.
Wow.
It's just so many avenues that you can go into doing t-shirts.
So the
And
technology itself has evolved,
oh yeah,
making, I guess, it more accessible and more affordable for those looking to get into the business.
yes, because I I've got about a $60,000 worth of equipment, and so those are some of the things that I wanted and needed, because I didn't want to continue to feed the middleman. I
Right.
wanted to be the middleman, or I wanted to be the man. And so even some of the equipment that I have, each piece of equipment I have serves a different purpose. And so getting into the industry, and this ties into one of the rewarding things, is that now I have this equipment and I can fulfill any job. It doesn't matter how many pieces a person wants. You can go from one piece to 1,000 pieces. I have service providers, screen printers. For somebody come to me and say they want 500 shirts. Right now, I'm not equipped to do 500 shirts personally, but I have service providers that I've been working with for so many years that I can take a 500 piece job to him and get the job quoted and get it done for a customer. So that's one of the rewarding things about it. And seeing people wear the products that you've created for
Mm.
them, and that's just outstanding. That's
You
just
know,
outstanding.
I should have worn my product tonight that you made
Yeah.
for me, and that's something. And I want to just reiterate is uh, I live what I preach. So if I bring someone onto this podcast, I just want to let you all know, the audience know, that it's going to be someone that, like I said, I've trusted. I've actually gone out and spent my hard-earned dollars on the product. I've tried it out, and I can tell you right now, um, Bulldog custom tees, uh, highest quality that you. I mean, this man can do it. I have never been disappointed with anything he's ever done. So, and like I said, that's a shameless plug for me.
Thank
But
you.
I'm just telling you right now to the audience, you know, I live what I preach, and if I bring someone on here, I'm going to make sure that they are authentic and they are exactly what they say they are and what they're advertising. And because I believe it's my responsibility that when I bring someone on this podcast, that they are the real deal. And I can tell you right now, Bulldog Custom Tees is the real deal. So, as a matter of fact, we were just talking right before this show, and I need some more things done. So, yeah, so look for that. And like I said, as a matter of fact, the swag that you're going to see on this podcast, RAP, Religion, Economics, and Politics, is going to be made by yours truly. So yeah. So I'm committed wholeheartedly.
And speaking of that, we have a brand new product now that we can make your REP logo come to life.
Oh wow!
A lot of times, you have logos with various amounts of colors, with gradients, with a 3D look or whatnot, and you can't get that in screen printing because the fees for the screens, and you can't get that in vinyl. But we have a process direct to film now, or even direct to garment, where we can print that product for you. And so with direct to film, we can put it on cotton, polyester, tri-blend. We can put it on cotton blends. So we can take that logo now, brother, and we can put it on a multitude of items for you.
Wow. Well, hey, let's do it. Let's do it. And that goes for any other business owner out there listening to this podcast. Give these guys a call. Give these guys a call. We'll make sure we'll make sure we put it up on the screen, and we'll make sure we definitely plug the business by the end of this podcast. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Don, in all of this, and I mentioned it earlier in the introduction. Man of God, and I think that is so important, especially when we talk about the integrity of the business.
Yeah.
What role do you believe your faith plays in your business? How does it impact your business?
Man, Morris, when me and my wife were first in our we've been married 27 years. And so in the early stages of our marriage, we were having financial problems, how to actually handle money. And I went to my father one day, and I asked my dad, say, "Hey, Dad, I need some help with something, and my dad said, "Boy, if ain't nothing wrong with your feet and your legs, you better find you another job." And I told my dad at that time, I said, if I got to get another job, I got to get rid of some stuff. So that, there's some things I have that I shouldn't have if I got to get a second job. Get rid of my wife. I couldn't get rid of my kids.
But that might end up costing you too, man.
Right, costing me even more. So I just had this talent, man, and this gift, and being a young deacon at the time, I would go to Manpower, TD Jakes Manpower conferences, and man, for 10 years I would take bus loads of men. And it just so happens, one day we was at a conference, and I believe that God was talking to me spiritually about my finances and getting my life together so that I can take care of my family, so that I can leave some generational wealth for my family. And we was at the conference, and TD Jakes made the statement that your gift will make room for you. We talked about how in this time in the 90s, a lot of young brothers were going to jail for selling drugs. And he said, if you can take a pound of weed, break it up into bags and sell that, then you can sell shoes, you can sell clothing, you can sell hats. And, I was already in the t-shirt business, and that just resonated with me. And he made us prophesy to our hands that we would never be broke again. And I tell you, because of my faith, because I believed in the principles of finances, the Bible talks about finances more than anything else. And we take it when ministers or somebody talk to us about our finances and that they're spiritual, they always, get tagged that they're the finance people.
Right.
But the one thing that we fail to do as Christians is look at what the Bible tells us about finances and how to use finances properly. And I'm not only talking about tithing or giving to the poor or giving to the benevolent fund, so to speak. How you do it for yourself. How do you become a steward of your finances where, you're not working to pay to take from Peter to pay Paul, as the old folk would say. And so believing by faith that God says that he would give me a cattle on 1,000 hills, that he gave me the power to get wealth. And when you look at that, and it says he'll give you the power to get wealth, he gave me the power to make money to take care of my family.
Absolutely.
And no matter what your gift or talent is, whether you're an entrepreneur or, like you say, you went to college to get a job, he gave you the power to get wealth. But you can't get it if you can't manage your money.
Absolutely. That's interesting because I'm actually in a Bible study, men's Bible study group now. It's called the Joshua's Men. Every Tuesday night, and through the Church Without Walls. And we're studying John 15 right now, and where it talks about Jesus being the true vine, and God being the vine dresser. And our one job is to be the branch.
Yeah.
Now, God calls us to be productive. We have to bear fruit. And if we don't bear fruit, what does he do? He's going to cut us off. He's going to cut us off. So, that bearing fruit, it also talking about expanding the kingdom of God, bringing those to Christ, being prosperous in our lives, being good stewards over those things that he has given us charge over.
Yeah.
And if we aren't doing it, we aren't producing, then, like I said, we'll get cut off and get thrown into the fire.
Yeah.
I heard a young man, I can't remember his name, and actually I should remember his name. He used to go to church with me a long time ago. He's a little bitty kid, and now he's a pastor. I was so happy to see him. But if I say his name, you know who I'm talking about. And he was talking about Christians and how the world sometimes viewed Christians. And we miss it a lot of times because we don't want to deal with money, or we don't want to deal with prosperity for fear of being, that's that prosperity gospel. And so we miss that. And so he talked about that Jesus, we're saved, and Jesus says, I'm the way. He said, imagine if we went to the mall and we got to the door.
Yeah.
But the mall manager's telling you to come on inside because, hey, I've got a shopping spree for you, but you're just sitting and bucking and shouting at the door, never go inside.
Yeah.
And we never enjoy what is actually inside for us, because what did Jesus say? I came that you may have life and have it more abundantly.
There you go.
Abundantly. And that's the part that we shun sometimes, look, I've been broke. I've had a little bit of money. I've had quite a bit of money. And I can tell you, having quite a bit of money is a whole lot better than not having any money at all. It's a whole lot better. Now, we also understand, we have to keep money in its perspective. And I know everyone likes to quote the scripture, that says, the love of money is the root of all evil. That's correct. The love of money is the root of all evil. But the Bible also says money answereth all things. So we don't like to read that part or quote that too much. These lights that are on right now, and this internet that's providing this service so that you and I can talk, money had to answer that.
Yeah.
They aren't gonna provide these services to us because I'm trying to do something good for the people, and they don't operate on charity.
That's right. So, and I go back to the equipment that I have, right? And so when you talk about money answereth that, it was a struggle paying that note every month, and when I was working full time, I knew that bill was coming around every month. But when we talked about fruit, right?
Yes.
Now that the equipment is paid for, I see the fruit of that, right? It took me 3.5 years to pay for this equipment, right?
Yes.
But I see the fruit of it now. The fruit of it now is that when I do earn from using the equipment I have, I don't have to pay that note. So that's a note that goes back into my pocket. It goes back into my pocket to buy ink, to buy film, to pay for the lights. So I'm seeing the fruit of that labor. It was punishing. Right. It was horrible, and I didn't like it. but I had to grow in such a way that, I knew that there was an end in sight, that this equipment would be paid off. And once that equipment is paid off, now I can see the fruit of it. Even finding a CPA to handle my finances, to show me how I can have income, discretionary income to use toward the business, or to have cash flow in the business. Show me, okay, well, you may not need to buy this but once a month, or do this. So, you need to put those things in place. Even just this month, I was blessed with someone coming on board and being our business officer. And so this person brings business to us, you see. And so that's how my business has started to grow. I'm looking at the numbers that we're doing in the last 2 months, and I can't believe it, and I just thank God for that, and it's all about, what does God say for you in your life? What does everybody doesn't strive to be millionaires. Everybody don't want to be a billionaire. I wish I could be, but what does God say I can be right now? We get it mixed up when we see these Hollywood people on TV or on Instagram, the Instagram models, or the social people that say you can come in and make $1 million or $10,000 a month. That bugs me, because now you're selling falseness.
Right.
Some people get lucky and fortunate, and they can make $10,000, $20,000 a month just being on social media or selling T-shirts. But everybody don't. So selling that dream, selling that lie, it can be a really harmful thing for people who are looking to be entrepreneurs. It's a fearful thing. It's a fearful thing to be an entrepreneur, to step out on faith.
I was just ready to say that your faith. I mean, you got to have faith like no other.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got to believe even when people around you are saying it ain't working. When people around you saying they don't see nothing from it. I've asked God several times, God, why am I doing? I'm going to quit. And when I got ready to quit, here comes somebody and say, hey, Jobe, I need about 30 shirts. Can you do 30 shirts? Or I need 120 shirts. Or I need something for a family reunion. Can you help me out? And I was like, God, you got a sense of humor, man. Because, I'm looking at my wife, and sometimes she's got doubt about what I'm doing because she ain't seeing the fruit, but the fruit is that we ain't taking the money from our main finances to pay for the bills finances. And that's where I was trying to get to. And now that I'm there, oh man, it's a blessing. It's
and you just brought up something, Don. You mentioned your wife, and I think people sometimes can underestimate how important it is to have a spouse, someone in your corner.
Oh wow!
Especially a godly spouse.
Yeah,
in your corner, or a mentor, someone. So when you're facing those tough moments, when you're having doubts yourself, even though they may doubt, but they understand the assignment.
Yeah.
They understand the vision that God has given you.
Yeah.
And even when their flesh, wants to turn a different direction, or that question mark may pop up, because we're human, we all do. Yeah. How important is it? I'll put it this way. How important has it been to have your wife in your corner?
I couldn't have done it without her. I couldn't have. When we first started, we have a company called Team Logo Apparel, and Team Logo Apparel is where we do mobile printing for high schools and youth football or youth sports period. We'll take our mobile trailer and we'll set up at the games. And so we were pioneers of that, because we were taking our heat press machine and transfers. We would take them to the high school game. We pack them in the car, just get up, pack them in the car. And, I couldn't have done I couldn't handle the customers, take the transactions, and then turn around and press the shirts all at the same time. I needed a partner. And, she told me early on that she got tired of being my secretary. I'm not going to call these people. I'm not going to answer the phone. That's not my job, and blah, blah, blah. But she came on board to be my partner when we started going out into the world and doing business. And even today, she showed me how to operate the POS system. And when we would go do the mobile business, while I'm out here getting shirts and everything ready to put on the trailer, she's setting up the POS system. And then I'll tell you a funny story. So one day we was at this youth sports game, and she was already on me about having to get up early on Saturday morning and go to these games. And so one day we was at a game, and this lady started talking kind of ugly to her. And, I'm going through my mind. I'm like, my wife don't even want to be here. And here this lady talking crazy to her. So I turned around and said, hey, ma'am, you're not going to talk to my wife like that. And at that moment, my wife said, I got this. She calmed that lady down and had that lady eating out of her hand, upselling her to put a name and a number on it. And then and there, I knew that this is someone who could train someone to do this job. So she's my POS manager, and she's also the customer service representative. And without her say so, her support, she's been supportive even when I would say, hey babe, I need this $25,000 piece of equipment. What you need that equipment for? I call it Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
She's gonna give me those questions, and I better give her the right answer. Even if she doesn't like the answer, it's like, okay, I'm gonna believe you, I'm gonna trust in you. And it's because of that. She came to me one day, Morris, and she said, I want something. And I'm like, well, what do you want, babe? I'll get you whatever you need. She said, no. She said, you got a business, and I feel like I want something that I can call my own. And I said, well, what do you want? And she said, I think I want to do candles. And so now I'm in support of her and her candle making business. And so my wife is everything to me in this business. She always said, well, that's your business. And I said, it couldn't have been mine without yours. Because I remember one day when I went and got a $15,000 contract to do football helmets, shoulder pads, football pants. We were living in an apartment complex on the third floor. And I was throwing equipment up the balcony while she was catching it. So, I couldn't have done none of this.
Wow.
And I praise God for my wife because, she was there through it all when we had the kiosk, when I had to close the kiosk down. Every time I said, baby, I don't think this is going to work, I'm going to give up. She was like, you don't come this far, don't quit. Just, it'll break in one day. And, you need that. You even need the criticism that they have because you can get you can see money coming in and decide you need a $50,000 piece of equipment, but you might need to do something else in the house.
Absolutely. I'm so glad, Don, that you touched on that. Not only, the part about the importance of your spouse and kind of the checks and balances being in place, but also how you kind of, highlighted the humble beginnings. And I think that's so important for people out there who are thinking about starting their own business. And, a lot of times we see the top end of our success or the pinnacle of the success. But people don't get to see the humble beginnings where, hey, I started when I was living in an apartment, or hey, I was selling t-shirts out of the trunk, or we don't see that part of it. And I want to encourage everyone that, if God has given you a vision, if it's something that just keeps gnawing at you, won't go away, I don't care how many jobs you've worked, I don't care what everyone else said you're supposed to be doing, but this particular dream or this desire continues to come back time and time again, maybe that is what God has planned for you in your life. And you don't necessarily have to have the big office building. You don't have to have, the top equipment, all these different things. Start with what you have. Start where you are. Go down and go get your DBA. Go get your DBA, open up a bank account. Open up a storehouse. Get ready to start receiving. Start prepping that groundwork. Start planting those seeds, but move forward. Do something.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this and then I'll go back to something. I stopped asking God for things, and asked him for position.
Mm.
God, if you can put me in position, you know. Les Brown says it's best to it's best to what is I forget. It's best to have a plan than I'll come up with it. But there's a saying that Les Brown.
I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes. And so I go back. I started my life over again. Right. I was living in an apartment complex by myself. I was single for 13 years, and things weren't going right with my life. And again, I was chasing money, and I got tired of chasing money. And so I moved back home to live with my mother. And the only place my mother had for me to live was in the attic.
Mm.
The attic was like a little room. And she said, you can come live over here with me, but you got to live in the attic. Started working at Kinko's. Quit my job and because I wanted to become a graphic designer. And I said, I'm going to go to work at Kinko's. And at that particular time, I was making $35K a year. And that was big money for me. And I went to Kinko's, and the manager said, why in the world would you want to come over here? Because I'm not going to pay you but $6 an hour. I said, because God told me something. And I believe what he told me. And I'm going to honor him by doing what he told me to do. He told Abraham to what? Pack up and leave. And so I interviewed with the guy at Kinko's, and he took me from $6 to $6.50. Right?
Big jump.
So while I'm at Kinko's, I'm learning how to be a graphic designer. And then I went to work at another Kinko's, and they had a heat press machine. And so at this particular time, I was using that heat press machine to print my shirts. Well, there's always somebody that's jealous about what you're doing. And somebody got me fired. But in the process of being fired, the Kinko's at the time said, hey, we're not using this heat press machine. You can take this heat press machine with you.
Hush.
You hear me?
God.
So I took that heat press home and put it in the attic where I was staying in my mama's house. And that's where we would press our Christian shirts and go out and sell it. We were doing pop-ups before pop-ups were a thing to do. And so it all morphed from that. You know, Les Brown says it's best to be prepared for an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And so I told God to put me in position because I'm prepared for my opportunities. And I learned even in business, when I started, when people say, can you do this? I don't tell them no. I go ask one of my service providers, can we provide this service to a client? And if they can't do it, I'm going to keep finding. Somebody called me one day and said, Don, I need a carpet. I said, what kind of carpet you need? He said, well, I want a carpet out in front of my business with my logo on it. I didn't know how I was going to get that carpet, but I found a company in Philadelphia that makes rugs and put customers' brands on them. And they became a service provider of mine.
Wow.
You know, it's all in how you look at it. You know, there are obstacles in our life. I tell my sons and my daughter today, there's obstacles in your life. What obstacle are you going to allow to keep you from achieving your goal? You know, even my son now, who graduated from college as a graphic designer, he doesn't like where he is. I said, well, you don't never despise the day of small beginnings. You're here for a reason. It doesn't mean you have to stay here, but while you're here, learn something. So one day a customer called me 2 weeks ago and said, hey, Don, I need some floor graphics. Can you do some floor graphics? I need them to be a certain size. Well, the machine I have is only 30 inches. And so they wanted larger than 30 inches. So I called my son's company that he worked for. And I said, hey, you know, I want you guys to be a service provider of mine. Is it possible that we can do business together? And I told them what my customer needs. And then I told them, I said, my son Don works over there with you. They said, yeah, we know Don. And we're going to give you a 20% discount on the products. So that's how they laid that out. So now the company he works for is one of my service providers, and they give me a 20% discount on all the products I buy to use for my customers. And so God works things out for a reason. And that's, you know,
I keep telling people, I said, God is undefeated. He's the GOAT.
He real GOAT.
and the
so
GOAT, man.
When you got something, you know, do your research. I used to tell my son all the time, you know, before you start designing for somebody, you need to do your research. And I tell anybody, if you want to start a bit, you're a perfect example. When you called me up and talked about what you wanted to do and how you wanted to do your podcast and everything, and next thing I know, here we are talking to each other.
Wow.
You had to do your homework, find out what camera you need, what microphone you need, how to do the record. So you had to do your homework.
And I'm continually improving it. Continually improving it. It's a process. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Don. And hey, I really appreciate the advice that you gave me and the input. I'll tell you, it was valuable because, like I said, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like you said, do your research.
Yeah.
And then act on it. You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid. You got to act on it. And I'll tell you what, when I asked you that question, I had gone through some things. And for those that don't know, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago now, I was in a hospital from COVID, and I almost died. And when I'll just put it this way, I had an encounter with God, and I went through I wouldn't even say it's a Q&A because God was asking all the questions and I had no answers.
Right.
So God asked me he showed me the breaths in my body. It's just weird, and I know it sounds weird, but he actually showed me the breaths in my body. He said, "Look over there. You see that? You know what that is?" And I'm looking up to my left, and as I'm telling you now, I'm reliving this, and I could see this countdown. And he says, "Those are the breaths you have left." And brother, it wasn't good. I mean, what that meaning when you start to put a number on the breaths that you're taking, that's kind of scary. And I'm looking at they're going down, almost like the sands, going through the hourglass bottle. I mean, it's because you would like to think that you have infinite breath left. And so then God asked me, "What have you done worthwhile with the breaths of life that I have given you?" And I could not answer God. When I came out of that hospital, and to make a long story short, when I came out of the hospital and made a full recovery, one of the lasting things that stayed with me is that God is who he says he is.
Yeah.
And he has a purpose for all of us.
Yeah.
And the beginning, or just the spirit tip of the purpose that God had for me, was to start this podcast.
Yeah.
And I got busy right away. And I'm telling you, you don't have to have a near-death experience to get God to motivate you to move on your purpose. Now, that happened to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it. But what I'm saying is, starting today, just pick up the phone. You may not know, but call and ask someone who does.
Yeah.
Start putting one foot in front of the other. It's not going to be perfect. Hey, when I first started this thing out, man, I have my cell phone, and and I'm working it from that, and then I've got little equipment here and there. And I got glitches, and how do I do this? How do I do that? I'm really nervous. And going back to what you said, Don, the question we were talking about the spouse, how important is the spouse? I tell you what, my wife, you've actually known my wife longer than I've known her. So. Yeah. But just a rock. And I tell you what, where my knees were probably shaking, like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, man. She stepped in and she knew what I needed. And so she says, "Well, okay, well, all you got to do is this, and then you click here and you do this and you do that." And she explained all of that to me and helped me bring this thing together.
Yeah.
And then she gave me some critical, or was it constructive criticism?
Yeah.
And I took that to heart. But like I said, that's how I got to where I am today. You got to start somewhere. Like I said, I don't recommend having a near-death experience to motivate you to get there.
Yeah.
So if anything that I've said tonight, or Don has said tonight, has motivated you to do it, hey, the next thing you need to do is act on it.
Act on it.
Act on it. I don't care what the business is. I don't care if it's motivational speaking. I don't care maybe if it's to go into custom teas business, if it's to start a podcast, whatever it is that God has called you to do, it could be singing, it could be acting, whatever it is, find opportunities to act,
Yeah.
find opportunities to sing,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
I saw Steve Harvey one time, and he was talking about, he was in a restaurant one day, and a waiter had approached him, and he was looking for an opportunity. And so Steve said, "Well, what do you do?" He says, "Well, I act." He says, "Okay, well, are you currently acting?" And the guy couldn't answer it. Well, says, "But if you are an actor, you need to act. You need to be doing that right now
Yeah.
before you get to the big stage, before you get to the lights and all these other things. When you
Yeah.
see these folks on television and these big superstars, trust me, they've been doing that way before you knew them,
For a long time.
for a
A long.
long time.
Yeah.
It didn't just happen.
Yeah.
Now, okay, we look at guys like Justin Bieber, YouTube sensation, but I'm sure Justin was probably singing before he made a YouTube video. He
Yeah.
didn't just discover that he could sing one
Exactly.
day and then the next day he turned on the camera and got on YouTube. He was
Exactly.
probably singing from, a couple years earlier than what you saw him.
Yeah.
So you could be the next big entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You could be the next big star, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Your purpose, God designed a purpose within you to make an impact on this world. So, but like I said, Don and I, like I said, we know each other, so I can run my mouth. One thing I wanted to ask you, Don, and we kind of touched on it, but what advice would you give someone who's, they're kind of on the fence, and man, they just don't know, but they want to start their own business. What advice would you have for them?
The one thing is to not allow your fear to paralyze you. Again, research the industry that you want to get involved in. Find out if there's magazines about it. Find out if there's conferences about it. Whatever education means that you can find out about that particular business, go do it. Go to it. See if that's really what your interest is, and then find ways to do it. Like you said, you started out on your phone doing your podcast, right? I started out in my mom's attic with a heat press machine that was given to me. And so I didn't know, as a matter of fact, that heat press lasted for about a good 8 years until I had to purchase another one. And so, you got, and I'm going to use this as an example. You have people now that do t-shirts and they use crickets. I by no means criticize people that use crickets. But when you want to get to an industrial way of printing for people where you're doing more than just one piece at a time. We got a cutter. Our cutters can do hundreds of pieces at a time. You have to get to that point. And how do you get to that point? You start small and then you grow into your business. A lot of times people think that business comes. You have to grow into your business. I've grown into my business. It's like when we were kids, your mama would say, well, he'll grow into that head or so, or he'll grow into that body,
Right.
And so you have to grow into your business. And when you're growing into your business, it's a learning experience because you have to pivot. Your business cycle may change. COVID is a great example of people who lost their businesses because they didn't know how to pivot. There was a lot of t-shirt people that had buildings that were in trouble because they couldn't get products, they couldn't get customers. I'm one who lasted through COVID. I praise God for that because when COVID hit, I was like, okay, it was time for us to renegotiate our contract. And at the time I said, baby, I don't know if I want to stay in this building. One, we were robbed over there. They stole my equipment. They stole my trailer. And, it was devastating. But I had big boy insurance. And big boy insurance allowed me to get back in business. And so it was time to renegotiate. And I said, baby, I just want to go home. And we built our home to bring the equipment to the house in case something happened. And that helped me make it through COVID. But don't fear. Do your research. Step into it where your finances are, where you are. Don't go out and try to get 5,000 customers when you can only handle 2. You follow what I'm saying? So that would be my advice. Don't be paralyzed by the fear. Step into it where you are, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your competition, know what you can and cannot accomplish. Because you don't ever want to tell a customer you can do something and then they find out you can't.
Wow. That is great advice. And that is actually things that I look for in a business. Just be honest with me.
Yeah.
If I make a request and if you can fulfill it, great. But don't overpromise.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that would probably make me say, okay, well, that's the last time I'll go there.
Yeah.
But when that business is honest with me and say, hey, at the moment, here's what we can do.
Yeah.
I will be more apt to go back to that business because of the quality of service they gave me. They were honest and they delivered on what it was that they said they could do.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people, I'm loyal, to a fault. So once I find a business, that I can trust and they deliver good quality service, I'm probably going to be with that business, for a long time. So even if I could have gone next door and maybe gotten it a little bit cheaper or a little bit quicker or whatever the case is, but I really am loyal to a fault. Once I find a business that I'm comfortable with and I trust them, I'm coming back. So I thank you for for saying that because I think that's not only important to me, but to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's definitely something that young entrepreneurs want to model themselves after when they're starting a business out.
Yeah, and then when somebody critiques your business, if for me, I like to make it right. I may not be able to reprint 100. If I mess up 100 shirts, we got to do something. I'm not even gonna mess up 100 shirts. But if you're doing T-shirts, perfect example. We do T-shirts all the time, and every now and then you mess up one, right? And my wife came to me one day, and I said, "Man, I just messed up a shirt." And she said, "You know what? Buy at least 1 to 2 extra T-shirts when you're doing a job." Now, what that does is if I don't have to use that 1 or 2 extra shirts that I purchased, I built up an inventory. So if somebody says, "Hey, I need a shirt tomorrow," if I have the color and the size, I can go ahead and do it. And then 2, if I mess up a shirt, then I've got a replacement already, and I don't have to delay that job. So you got to be smart about what you're doing. We always try to praise God for giving us the ability to say, we don't want an inventory of T-shirts because that's just money on hand. And right. So we do what we call print on demand. We only buy shirts, we only buy product when the customer is ready for it and has paid for the job. And that has been a blessing for me as well. So, wow. You've got to know your business inside and out. And like for me, going to the T-shirt conferences has really helped. Understanding how to use your equipment, understanding what that equipment is capable of doing and what is not capable of doing, and then joining social groups. Now that we're in the age of social media, some of the companies that I do business with, they have started social media groups where we can learn from each other.
Oh, there's a knowledge share.
A knowledge share, because you're in Texas. You can't hurt me in Tennessee, but what we can do is share our knowledge. If something happens to one of my heat press machines and it happens to somebody else, that person say, "Hey, that happened to me." You may want to call the company and ask them for part A or part B. You see, and instead of beating yourself upside the head and doing something and maybe putting the wrong heat or the wrong pressure on a job, So there's a lot of things that you need to learn if you decide you want to go on this entrepreneurial journey. Just know your industry, continue to grow with your industry as your pocketbook allows you to grow. Yeah.
So Don, you've given us a lot of really, really good information that we would not necessarily get in a business school. So, we should be paying you tonight for the information that you've given us tonight. And I know we talked about the t-shirt business, but I feel like these are principles that can be applied, across many different industries.
Yes.
So, we could go on, probably for another hour, and especially when you and I get together.
Yeah.
But I want to give everyone an opportunity now to, if they wanted to get in contact with you, or if they wanted to, do business with you, how can they find you?
Well, the best way to catch me is to go to my website, bulldogcustomtees.com. And there's a quote form on the page. So you can fill out the quote form. And what that does is put you in the queue. And because I'm always, doing production or I'm doing something, if you get in the queue, I'm guaranteed to get you. I don't always answer the phone. I try to answer the phone between a certain period of time. But I love going to my email and seeing people looking for work. And so that's the best way for me to get you involved with me, is go to bulldogcustomtees.com, and that's TEES, bulldogcustomtees.com. And you can find me on Instagram at bulldogcustom.tees, and you can see the work that we're doing. I got videos of the work that I'm doing. Sometimes I even will do a video on what's the best way to do something, and I'll load it up on IG just so people can see that we can do what we say we do. And a great note, we started a clothing brand. It's not a big clothing brand. It was just something that we started. It's called Prep Line, and that's preparation through lineage. And so,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Preparation through lineage is me teaching my kids how to do this business, or telling someone like yourself to teach the next generation how to do podcasts. And so we started Prep Line as a brand so that I can show other people with brands that we can do your product. Because a lot of people say, hey, I got a clothing brand, I want to do this, and they don't believe that you can help them. But if you see me doing my own clothing brand, now you know I can do your clothing brand. And the industry,
wow, I like that.
Industry's come a long way. You don't have to buy 144 pieces to start your clothing brand now. You can start with one,
Wow.
and you can do a pop-up where you may only do 12 pieces. So we can help you in any way, shape, or form. Help you brand your business, help you promote your business. We do promotional products as well. So Bulldog Custom Tees is more than just tees.
Okay. I love it, man. And like I said, I always encourage everyone to support small business. I definitely encourage minorities to support, minority-owned businesses or Black-owned businesses. Your business will be up on my website, rappodcast.com, as well. So you can go directly to Don's site, and then as soon as our webmaster is done with everything, you can go to rappodcast.com and go to our services, and you'll be able to see Bulldog Custom Tees located on our website as well.
All right.
This has been an excellent podcast, Don. Thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us, and encouraging some young entrepreneurs out there, and just kind of inspiring that next generation coming up behind us. So I thought it was especially important during Black History Month for minorities and young Black men and women to see entrepreneurs like yourself who just said, hey, look, I'm going to manifest my dream.
Yeah.
I'm going to manifest my dream. So first step is, hey, let's just start doing it. And like you said, don't let fear hold you back. So, all right, well, folks, that is our podcast tonight. Thank you so much for joining us on Religion, Economics, and Politics, aka REP. We really appreciate it. And as always, be encouraged.
Thank you.